Silence. Not just any silence, mind you, but that deafening, icy, impenetrable wall of silence. The kind that creeps into the room like a thick fog, settling between you and the person you so desperately wish to reach. Yes, that's the beast we're addressing today. How to talk to a fearful or dismissive avoidant when they're stonewalling. And before you even think of charging that barricade, fists clenched and heart ablaze, allow me to offer a few words of guidance. You see, confronting an avoidant during one of their grand stonewalling performances requires not brute force, but something far more cunning, patience, wit, and an elegance of strategy that would make even the most seasoned diplomat blush. Now, perhaps you know the scene all too well. You found yourself speaking into the void, your words disappearing into the ether as your beloved stares fixedly at the floor, or worse, at their phone. You've tried every trick you know, pleading, explaining, accusing, suggesting, and yet, nothing. It's as though you're attempting to have a conversation with the side of a mountain. The avoidant has shut down. The drawbridge has been pulled. The castle walls are high, and you, poor soul, are left pacing the moat. But fear not, for there is a way, and it begins not with scaling the walls, but with understanding why they were built in the first place. You see, dismissive and fearful avoidants are not cold by nature. No. Quite the opposite. They are often those who have felt the fiercest heat of emotional vulnerability and been burned for it. Early betrayals, unreliable caregivers, years of learning that their needs were inconvenient or their feelings excessive. So they adapted. They survived. They built a fortress within which they could control the chaos, monitor their own emotions, and, most importantly, ensure no one else had the power to wound them again. So when you, dear, eager, well-meaning you, come knocking on those walls with your requests for intimacy, your pleas for connection, and your heartfelt desire to just talk about it, they do precisely what they've always done. They retreat. They disappear into themselves, convinced that opening the gate would only invite disaster. And what do we do in response? We knock louder, harder. Sometimes we kick the gate and demand entrance. And so begins the war of escalation. They shut down. We pursue. They withdraw. We advance. And around we go until both parties are exhausted and nobody remembers what started the fight in the first place. But here's where the true art lies. If you wish to speak to an avoidant who's stonewalling, you must first show them that you are not a battering ram. You are not the enemy. You are not here to storm the castle. You are merely here to sit outside the gate and wait, lantern glowing softly, until they are ready to peek out. How, you ask? Well, allow me to illustrate. First, acknowledge the silence. Call the beast by its name. You might say, I can feel that you're shutting me out right now. Simple. Director. Not accusatory. Just an observation, as if remarking on the weather. It seems like you're needing space, and I want you to know I respect that. This, my friends, is critical. The avoidant needs to know that you see their withdrawal, not as an attack, not as an insult, but as what it is. A coping mechanism. Offer them the dignity of their defense. Respect the fortress. After all, it was built for a reason. But, and here's the trick, you must also gently point out the limitations of that defense. You might add, I know space helps you feel safe, and I want to honor that. But I also know that if we stay stuck in this silence, we won't have the chance to really understand each other, and that leaves us both alone. Notice the subtlety here. You're not demanding they tear down the walls. You're simply planting a seed, a suggestion that perhaps the very thing they built to protect themselves is also what's keeping them isolated. You offer them a vision of a different way, one in which you could be trusted to enter if only they'd open the gate. Then, and this is the part most people miss, you invite them, gently and without pressure, to choose the moment. Would you let me know if and when you feel ready to talk? I'd love to hear what's going on for you when the time feels right. That's it, an invitation. No deadlines, no ultimatums, just a soft place for them to land when they're ready. But wait, you say, what about my needs? What about my feelings while they sit in their tower brooding? Yes, quite right. And this is where your own mastery comes in. You, too, must step into the role of emotional adulthood. Because if your reaction to their stonewalling is to chase and push and poke and prod, I promise you, you will only reinforce their fears that closeness equals danger. Instead, tend to your own fires, take your own space, reground yourself in your body, breathe, feel your feet on the floor. Remind yourself that their withdrawal is not proof of your inadequacy. It is not a reflection of your worth. It is merely their own old dance, playing out as it always has. And when the time comes, when they do finally emerge from behind the walls and blink at you uncertainly in the light, this is when you hold the door open to understanding. You listen. You do not pounce. You do not say, "Finally, I've been waiting." Number. You say, "Thank you for coming back. I'd love to hear what's been happening inside of you." And from there, perhaps, if you are both very brave, you can begin to rebuild something stronger than the fortress. Something that doesn't require walls and gates and moats. Something that looks very much like mutual respect, vulnerability, and, dare I say it, peace. But do not be fooled. This work is not for the faint of heart. It requires you to release the fantasy that you can force another person into connection. It demands that you surrender the idea of control and instead become an invitation, a warm hearth, not a siege engine. And if you can manage that, well, then you just might find that the stonewall is not as impenetrable as it once seemed. So, light your lantern, sit quietly by the gate, and trust that with patience, presence, and a bit of cleverness, the walls may yet come down. And should you find these musings helpful, do consider staying a while. Subscribe, share your own tales below. After all, we're all just travelers here, learning the language of love, one quiet conversation at a time.
If you believe this video might help someone dear to you, share it with them. A small gesture on your part could mean the world to a friend in need.